One day, Charlotte and I were at the Children's Hospital, and we were visiting in the inpatient section of the hospital, and I would be given a list, and then the names of kids who really needed a dog visit, there'd be a little star next to their name. And so this room, there was just a name and a star, and I walked in the room. And you never know what's going to be going on the other side of the door. And in this particular case, it was a little girl that was crying. She was maybe 7 years old. And she was just saying, I want to go home, I want to go home. And we walked in the room, and she climbed onto the floor, and she started petting Charlotte. And they ended up telling me as a family, so this little girl and her mother and father, telling me the story of how she'd had this terrible accident at home, and it was very scary. And she'd been helicoptered to the hospital the night before. And she'd been in a coma all night long and had woken up that morning and hadn't been awake for very long. And really all she had done since she'd woken up was fuss and cry and say that she wanted to go home. And the parents were so scared, they didn't know if she had all of her cognitive ability because there was a head injury involved. So they watched the little girl tell Charlotte the story about what had happened. And she told it in detail. And I know from my mental health background that one of the best ways to prevent post-traumatic stress disorder is to tell the story, afterwards, to help kind of create a story in your brain that you'll keep probably forever. You're always going to remember it. And how you remember it and encode it into your brain, that's lasting, and it can affect your mental health in a positive or negative way. So I'm realizing it as I'm sitting there, and she's telling Charlotte about this horrible, really scary experience that she'd had. And I didn't have to do much. I just, would say things like, really, wow, oh my gosh, that happened to you? That's crazy. And she's like, I know, I can't wait to tell my friends at school. And I just watched her go from being very distraught and very upset to kind of almost laughing about a really, really scary trauma. And not only that, but watching her parents light up as they could see that, she had all of her cognitive ability, she was still her, and just all we really had to do was walk in the room, and we're not doctors, we can't fix whatever was going on with her on the inside, but yeah, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
Several years ago, we were visiting the assisted living facility, and we were in the living room where a number of the people sat and visited during the day, just kind of walking around saying hello to folks. And I looked out, and there was this woman who got out of her chair and was crawling along the floor and came up to my dog and gave her a big hug and just kind of hugged her for a minute. And then she turned around, crawled again across the floor, and climbed up in her chair and sat there. Well, a little bit later, one of the other residents took me aside and said that was the very first time that woman had interacted with anyone or anything in her time at the assisted living. That she always sat in that chair and didn't talk to people, didn't visit. But when my dog was there on the floor, she got down and came over and gave it a big hug. And I thought that was a great testament to the value of pet therapy.
This is my second therapy dog. The one that I joined with originally was Mr. Gibbs. He was a Puggle, Pug and Beagle mix. And for me, he was a rescue, but for me, he saved my life as well as I saved his, because I was going in really dealing with depression and anxiety and some other stuff, and he just kind of said, I don't care, we can help. I can help you, and then I can help all these other people too. So that's what kind of got me wanting to do as much as I could and reach as many people as I can.
I've had people where I literally held my corgi up next to this lady who was trying to stand in this machine, and she was exercising all those muscles by just standing. And they asked her if she could do another 2 minutes, and she turned to them and said, "That's 120 seconds more." And she was dead serious, like, I can't. And then I said, "Well, if you'll do it, I'll stand here with you and you can keep petting him while you do the other 120 seconds. And she said, "All right, you're on." So she did. So it's just, it takes their mind away from how much they may be hurt or how sad they are that they're in this situation, and just makes them know that they'll get back to a life. It kind of, I think it just reassures people that there's real world out there and they'll get back.
The first place we went to, and we're still going to it, is a drug and alcohol rehab center out in Pennsylvania. And we were there the other day, for example, and one middle-aged man said, "Can I pet Skipper?" And I said, "Sure." Then he picked him up and put him in his lap and hugged him for about 10 minutes and said, "I really needed this." And we've had a number of occasions where things like that have occurred.
I have a special student that Peanut and I work with, and she's blind, and Peanut was the first dog she ever encountered. I didn't know what my dog was going to do, and she's a little tiny dog. She lay there, she let that child touch her everywhere. Feet, ears, nose, over her eyes, everything. This child just patted her everywhere, and the dog just lay there. She obviously knew that there was something different about this. And while everybody who was sitting around watching was crying because it was amazing. And so it's been 3 years now, and we visit her usually twice a month, and she reads her Braille books to the dog and talks to us about different things. And then I have a 2-foot leash, and when it's time to go back to the classroom or wherever she's going, we hook the 2-foot leash to her harness along with the leash I have, and so she gets to walk the dog through the school back to her classroom. And every kid in the hallway is really, really jealous, but it's really nice. So.
So many of our really great experiences helping people were just in the parking lot of the hospital. You know, people that are about to go, you know, cry in their car, situations like that. And just being able to, you know, touch a dog or hug a dog, pet a dog, it makes them feel, you know, grounded.